So, welcome everyone to our first projector gathering by the campfire. It is fantastic to be able to see people and be able to hear people and to interact in real time. And the aim of this is learning human design through the people. And I've been really inspired by James, by Jimmy, who's here with us, and the group he set up, and the way that he celebrates people's, the way that we celebrate people's life stories in that group. And it just became really clear that that was something that isn't necessarily being done. We have a lot of talk about people's charts, but why not hear some people's stories? Why not get to know each other a little more intimately and hear about each other's lives? So Melissa was on the last call that we had, and she put her hand up straight away. So Melissa is based in Florida, in Jacksonville. She's an intuitive and energy healer. She's a yoga instructor, and her chart is, well, we'll come to her chart in a minute. So Melissa, welcome. Let's bring you in and say hello.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I started talking with Dunstan recently. I randomly kind of found a chat that he was doing, and I just got really excited about what they were talking about, and it just seemed really fun and interesting, and we were all in this projectors group. So when he messaged me about maybe starting a kind of a gathering or a campfire chat, I was really all about it, and I said yes right away, and here I am.
Awesome. So we hear a lot of projectors, especially, saying, "Well, trust the aura to let things happen." So we're not going out and initiating, and yeah, I love the energy that's brought us to this point, and I'm stoked to get to know a little bit more about you, and hopefully, in this experiment, the thing I personally find the most powerful is when we can match up. Here's something on someone's chart, and here's the lived experience they have of life. Not just saying, because you've got this, therefore you should experience this. Just going back and forth between the two of us, the chart and the person. So
that's really refreshing for me. I think that's a great way to approach this. I think the topic for me is so vast, it becomes almost overwhelming. And I think this is going to be able to add that human element into it, that story, that experience that's going to help me personally connect to the material even better.
Amazing. So let's start. So Melissa, where were you? You were born in Florida, is that right?
Yes, I was born in South Florida, a town called Boca Raton. It's kind of near Fort Lauderdale. It's about an hour north of Miami Beach. It's a coastal town, and I was there until I was about 18. Then I went to college in Florida, and then I moved to North Carolina for a while, lived there for a little bit, did a lot of cool stuff there, and I feel like I've traveled a lot. I've lived in Arizona, and my next move might actually be California. So that's kind of the works right now, and I'm really excited about it. So
Amazing.
I find that traveling has been a big part of my theme. I don't know if that's a lot of projectors have noticed that about themselves, or this is just something I don't know. I love to travel. I love new places. I love really testing my strength and finding how to like survive in new places.
And how long have you known that you're a projector for? How long have you been in this journey?
I discovered this. I was helping to run a group on UFO and extraterrestrial contact about 5 years ago. And some of the people there were really interested in human design. It's the first time I heard about it. It was through this other kind of subgenre of weirdness. And I learned about human design through that.
I actually have a really good friend called Terry Sisley, who's very deeply involved in that world, and she's the mental projector.
That's so interesting. I love that. I have a lot of interests. I would say diverse interests in things and I try different things. So this was a group that I was helping to kind of, co-create and just, together, meditating, having fun. It was light. It was good times, good people. And a lot of them were into human design. And when I found out that I was a projector, I looked up my chart right away and I started telling people about it. I started sharing do you know your human design? I think I've shared it with hundreds of people now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so how many years is that to now, roughly speaking?
I would say it's got to be about 5 years now, maybe a little bit more.
About 5 years.
Yeah.
And as far as living your strategy and your authority, obviously as a projector, your strategy is to wait for invitation.
Yes.
And you have emotional authority, correct?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, your authority is emotional from your chart. So
yes, it's right. So it's the solar plexus, emotional authority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, are you aware of this idea of living your strategy and authority, living your life, with an eye on those two things as a compass the whole time?
I would say that the authority for me is something more kind of recent, but I've been more aware of the strategy of waiting for the invite and seeing it all around me. And then talking to the other projectors in our group, I just hear this. It sounds like, I'm just like, how can there be this many people basically saying the same thing? If you were in a group with a mix of people, the message would not be that direct. It would be more diluted. It's obvious that there's a pattern. It's if we were scientists, this would be evident of how, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's that strong when you're in a group of projectors. There's no straying from the message. We're all in the same kind of situation. You can see it.
So when you look back at your life, what is it about being a projector that you feel you go, yeah, that clicks? Like, did the light bulb come on when you looked back with a particular incident, or just like,
yeah,
how did you feel?
I've always been better in smaller groups. I feel like I get lost in the crowd. Mm-hmm. At times where I've been almost looked to as a leader, but then it doesn't ever work out. I can't quite lead. It's almost like I'll be put in a position to lead and then it just doesn't work for whatever reason. It's like, I'll have great ideas. I'll be able to communicate, but it's like there's something not quite there. I'm better working in either alone, one-on-one, or in a 3 very small groups. That works way better where no one has to, it's like back and forth, and it's just more, it flows. I think I'm better with things that flow. So a personal experience would be times where I was put into a leadership position. Like I went through several things with student government when I was very young, and I would always win presidency, and then I would never be able to follow through. And it's hard for me to admit that, my ego takes a big hit, but it's like, that wasn't my position. That wasn't meant for me at that time. You know what I'm saying? So I pretty much gave up on that.
Do you think there was some kind of recognition? Do you think people saw something in you that
I think so. And I feel like the better fit for me, what ended up is that I'm better one-on-one, like in my client sessions and working one-on-one with people with yoga and, kind of student teacher kind of one-on-one. It's better for me. And I've learned that, like, in my career now that I've built, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm doing all my own work and I'm able to kind of lead my own life. It's gotten so much better for me. And I'm so much more in my body with it. I'm making my own decisions. I'm choosing me, and I'm going with what I know, and it just works.
There certainly seems to be a strong link between entrepreneurs and being a projector, where it's like, how do we manage to get abundance flowing towards us when we're not designed to work 40 hours a week or 60 hours a week, and being able to do things on our own terms, right?
I fried out. When I left my academic life, like I got a master's and through all that, when I started working like that, I found myself to be literally miserable and not be able to pinpoint why. I was burning out. I was switching jobs. I was unhappy. I was miserable, and I couldn't quite pinpoint. I'm like, I think I'm in a field I like. I have good people around me. I'm getting promoted. Why am I not? I just couldn't find inner peace. Okay. And
so could we
I
get
literally was burning out.
Yeah. What? Just can we get some numbers, like some ages on that? Like from what age to? So you went through a
Yeah.
period of like being feeling
So
like that burnout.
I would say I really started to notice that I was doing okay, like in my mid 20s, like with like work, and I was in a certain field. I was actually in the video game industry for a while. I was in there for about 4 or 5 years. I really enjoyed it in some ways. It was a lot of fun, and I liked the creative aspect of it and all of that. Then I went back and got my master's degree. And after that, I just wasn't finding a fit. I wasn't finding myself fitting into this cookie cutter, kind of world. And I was looking into getting into nutrition and trying a lot of different things like that. And I was still working on my spiritual life and, all kinds of things. So I was willing to try a lot of different things, and I did, and I enjoyed it. I would just the rigorous hours, the people, I would, how empathic I am and sensitive. And I was literally could not replenish myself. I was not being able to catch up and find where I could actually have that keep up with what other people were just seemingly like could do just so simply. It was taking every ounce of energy I had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just pretty much launched into my own business, and I've been so happy ever since. And I've been very successful, and I feel like it's very fluid. I'm very good at it. It fills me, right? It replenishes me versus drains me.
Was it hard to make that shift from being in that kind of, would you say you were living like a generator before, that you were trying to do the generator thing, but then?
I think that I was younger, so I had some abundant energy that, eventually will deplete. Okay. Like, you grow up and it gets a little more difficult. I'm sorry, what's the question again?
That's okay. You know what's really interesting is that are you familiar with being an energy projector? Because I'd like to, connect this to your chart as well. And you're talking about that abundance of energy. And we're also talking about the fact of not having that sacral defined. So, the people that have the sacral defined are generators, and they can keep on going. So, there was obviously, before you met human design, there was that recognition of going, actually, you know what, this doesn't work for me, from what you're saying.
Yeah. Well,
I was just curious. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, well, eventually I was running into a lot of nervous system disruptions. I was getting a lot of anxiety. It was starting to not just show up in me being like, blah, I can't work, or I'm sick, or it was starting to get very like dangerous for me. Like I was getting very ill, and I was becoming just very, just not good, like not good. So it was showing up in all kinds of ways in my life. My immune system was getting trashed. My health was this was like starting to ripple out into my entire life. And I wasn't able to fully, I wasn't really good for anyone. Let alone myself. I was trying to compromise my own self-worth and my own love for myself. I was completely getting depleted. So, switching gears was really awesome. And
so I'm just popping your chart up here. Yeah. So when you look at it now, do you, if you were to talk to that person back then who was experiencing that, what would you point out from your chart, or would you have any questions about your chart? You can either tell us, or you can ask, or, let's explore it together. Hey.
Yes, let's definitely. I think with that emotional center, I should have made.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Could you say that a bit again? I muted you.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I basically think that I should have been maybe taking my own energy a little bit more seriously, and understanding why I was getting depleted and not really able to keep up with the schedule that other, people around me were doing. And I think that as a 6'2", which I think I've probably studied that the most, understood that the most, is that I'm in this phase right now where I'm like on this thing called the roof, and I need to observe and kind of allow people to come to me, which is exactly what I do now. And it's like, it's beautiful, and it's perfect, and it's growing, and I'm seeing so much light in it, and so it's just so beautiful and amazing what's happening, that I'm allowing my profile, right? Is that, yeah, it's the profile.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
right.
That's profile. So for anyone who's watching, who's new, profile is, Melissa is a 6'2". So at the very top of the chart, it says projector, profile, 6'2". Now, there are 6 different lines. Is it cool if I break this down a little bit for people who are watching? And yeah, so we have 6 different lines: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, what you're going to notice, if you look at the column of numbers in red on the left and the column of numbers in black on the right, every number next to the symbol has 2 parts. The first part goes from 1 to 64, and that's the number of the gate. And then there's a dot, and then the second part goes from 1 to 6. So if we go right to the top of Melissa's personality information, which is in black, it's 28.6 or 28.6, which means it's the 28th gate, which, if you want to know where that is, gate 28 is on the spleen, which is down on the left, and it's a black gate on the 28. And the dot 6 means it's activated on the 6th line. And the 6th line is the role model, which we're going to come back to in just a second. And you'll notice that that's true for the top 2 symbols. That's the sun and the earth. So this is the incarnation cross. It's when you pop on down into earth, you come out into the world, you take your first breath, and that's linked to your life destiny, what you're here to do. And of course, we have 12 different profiles. So the second part, the 6'2", is, if we nip over onto the design side, we can see that Melissa has 33.2 and 19.2. So the 2 after that dot is the design, the line for the design. So it's 6 on personality and 2 in design. The personality we always write first, so it's 6'2". And what that means is that consciously, Melissa's living life as a 6th line, and that's the role model. In her unconscious, she also has a tendency, the hermit tendency.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh,
so,
yeah.
right. So the 6th line has these 3 phases. Do you want to talk about those 3 phases? You're in the middle of the 3 phases on the roof, right?
Yeah, so it's like the beginning is like this experimental sort of testing phase, I think, and it's so obvious. I tried so many things while I was building into my spiritual life, right? Like learning how to read tarot very young, and I'm a painter and an artist, and all these things came to me forever. I've kept them through all my experiments, right? All the things I've tried, all these things have been building the whole time, and now in my second phase of my 6th life, I'm now sort of like this. I've got a lot of knowledge. I've learned quite a bit. I've tested the waters of a lot of things. And now it's like people are coming to me for some of this wisdom and knowledge and advice. And I'm able to provide it through yoga and intuition work and healing work and, how to use energy and all this stuff. And then the last phase of it, which I'm not in yet, but I think it's when you're in like your 50s or 60s, you come down off of this mountain or the roof, and you then rejoin society and you mingle, and you're able to like not only share your knowledge with others, but you're integrated again with the world in some way.
It's such a cool thing, isn't it, to think that, like, for
Yeah.
a role model, like around about 50 is the age where you come to fruition, where like
Yeah.
you have some wisdom, and people should be like asking you and saying, hey, up there on the roof, can you come down and help us?
You're like a fine wine, right? Like you
Right.
You're like, you're delicious, it's like it has to look forward to, at least. You just got to make it to 50 and just keep going.
And one of the things I love about that, regardless of human design, is this idea of wisdom rather than just energy, right? Because if we're in a generator world, or we're in a corporate world, or whatever world we're in, it's like your value is how much energy you have and what you can get done.
Oh my goodness.
We've got wrinkles. We don't have as much energy, maybe as when we were in our 20s. But hey, guess what? We've got some wisdom, and this is for all of us, but especially for 6th lines. This is something to look forward to, right? To that that time.
Yeah.
So
The two. Can you help explain that a little bit?
Right. So it's the sixth line is the role model, and the second line is the hermit. So you're a 6-2.
Okay.
One of the things I heard about the hermit is, are you familiar with the 6 different layers of the house, where the 6 is up on the roof, right at the top, nipping onto the roof and then coming back?
Right.
It's kind of like it's almost like it's preparing for the next gate of activation, because after the 6th line, we're then going to, unless the planet's in retrograde or something weird, but definitely for the sun and for the earth, after the 6th line, the next thing that's going to happen is we go on to the 1st line of the next gate, right? So you've seen the rave mandala with that big wheel going around the outside.
Yes.
Right. So if you were born about a day earlier, you'd be 28.5. A day before that, 28.4. So it's roughly 6 days that each gate is activated. If you think about, 365 days divided by 64 gates, it's about 6 days per activation on that particular gate. So each line is about once per way moving through. So
cool.
Yeah, and so you're a left angle cross of incarnation. So if you're starting with a 5 or a 6, so if your black one, your conscious one, is either 5, the heretic, or 6, the role model, you're what we call a left angle cross of incarnation. And it's to do with the way it all lines up, which I'm not going to go into. Now, the hermit is the second line. And if you think about there's the lower trigram, which is the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd line. Then there's the upper trigram, which is the 4th, 5th, and 6th. Now, most profiles, you do get 4, 6, and you do get 1, 3, but most profiles have one line in the upper and one line in the lower trigram. So the lower trigram's like the foundation for the house, and then the upper trigram's like where that sort of comes to fruition.
Cool.
So
that's a really good way to explain it.
Right. So if we just keep with the 6th line for a moment, the 6th line lives roughly the first 30 years. It's until the Saturn return, 28 and a half or 30. It lives that as a 3rd line. And I'm a 3rd line. Now, 3rd lines are all about messing up, making mistakes, getting things wrong, learning by trial and error. If someone's like explaining to me how to do something, like you were saying, don't want to listen to them explaining to me how to do it. I just want to go out and try it. And even if I know it's not going to work out the way I'm doing it, I want to do it because I'm curious. And I want to find out what's going to happen if I do that. You know those pictures where you've got some kid on a skateboard at the top of like a massive hill, and he's looking at it, and it's not going to end well, but it's like, what was this? Because he's curious and he wants to know what happens if I ... So maybe in a bit you'll share some of your wild experiments.
Right. But so that's what 3s do. 3s need to have
that's the 3rd line. And that's so that's the first for the 6th line. The first 30 years I lived as a 3rd line. And I know when we talked to James later on in another talk, I believe he was a 6-2. So
So hi James. Yes, that was really why with you and James talking in the other chat, I was just all of a sudden I was really excited to talk to you guys. I don't know, I'm usually not that talkative, and I was just like, you guys, this is amazing. I don't know what this is, but I really want to talk to you. And he's in an area of Arizona that I know very well. And the whole thing was just a lot of synchronicity. Let me grab this book. I want to ask you about this. My friend has a human design book, and I want to see if you guys have this book, okay?
Yeah, sure. And we can talk about the 2nd line as well. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Because that was your question. I've been skirting and kind of getting to the 2nd line.
Yeah, I can hear you. So this is the book that my friend has here at the house. So she's got a really nice library, and I'm staying with her for a week. And I have this book here at my disposal, and I've been looking at it, and it's just fascinating, really. And so one really interesting thing is that most of my friends, and I've done their charts, they're manifesting generators. Not just a manifester and not just a generator, but a manifesting generator.
Do you know the special relationship that we can have as projectors with manifesting generators?
I know it. I know it now because all of my best friends are pretty much manifesting generators, and I go, let's do your chart. I go, let me guess, and that's usually what they are, and it's really it's, I mean, you know,
amazing. Yeah, I have a lot
amazing.
of
Again, this is like, if we were doing an experiment or something, the data would be yes, right? Like it's pretty much every single one. So and I don't have my friend circle is pretty close. I don't have tons and tons of friends, but the ones I do have that are close, and I would call them like my inner circle, are manifesting generators. So there's an interesting story. I don't know if that's something you've experienced or you've heard of others experiencing this.
Yeah, what I'd love with this whole thing is what would be a really cool thing to do, because it's nice to have, with this Zoom call, we got this possibility to have this one-on-one where there's this like direct focus. As you were saying earlier, we're really good one-on-one as projectors, so we have this kind of very intense focus between the two of us, and it would also be if anyone would like to type any comments into the chat box, let's just bring it back to the main screen. Now, if you're new to Zoom, you should have a little thing down the bottom where you can click on chat. And I'm going to just type a little comment in.
Also, maybe if somebody wants to speak, we could unmute them and they could ask their question.
Yeah, what I thought would be great.
Suggestion.
And then we can maybe pick some and people could read them out, because this is really cool. So then we can focus on things that are interesting to people.
Yes.
And pick that out. So yeah, and I'd be cool to hear from James as well. And
I would love to hear from James.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll just start by sharing what I know about the hermit. And I'm not a hermit. And then maybe James could talk about his experience, because I want to learn from this whole thing as well, right? So
yes.
So what I've read about the hermit, which is the two, which is your unconscious, is this tendency to want to kind of have people leave you alone and just kind of be in your room doing your thing.
Yeah.
And the story that I was told that goes with it, that's my way of remembering it, is, you're there as a second line, and you're creating, like, you're doing your art, but you're not doing your art because you think you're a great artist. You're just doing it because it's what you do. And it's just like you're just there doing something. So let's say you're working with a canvas, you've got the oils out and you're painting away, and you're just kind of not even aware that there's a window to the room.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's dark. You notice it's dark. You turn on the light, and then all of a sudden, because this is you're not in the basement, you're on the ground floor, and there's the window, and then people can see in. So this thing about being a hermit is like people are there looking in, and it's like, oh my goodness, and you're suddenly you realize you're naked. You've been there hanging out painting, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, there's like, and then you suddenly become aware of these people out there looking at you, and they're like, wow.
So you're being observed, you're being watched in some ways. You may not be aware of it all the time, but you feel like you're in isolation. You feel like you're doing this alone, and it's, you're in your own world and dimension, but really people are observing you and kind of having their own experience, watching you, or maybe even learning something or getting some kind of inspiration from you some way, but we're not aware of it as
right. And that
if at all,
right?
If at all.
Mm-hmm. That not being aware of it, it's in red, because it's in the unconscious, right?
Right.
So because it's your unconscious, it's like it's your just your tendency. It's your design rather than your personality.
Okay.
So personality is how you experience yourself, like how you feel you are. The things that are obvious about you to you. Whereas the unconscious is like, oh, actually, I have this tendency, but I didn't really be aware that I do that, don't I? It's like you sort of notice it, but it's kind of there underneath.
That's really interesting. And I am an artist. I do paint, so it's not just something to have an analogy or whatever. It's really truly what I do, and I've done for a very long time, and it makes a lot of sense because I just started doing that when I was, again, very young, had a very just innate talent for it, and I picked it up right away, and I just feel like I've always done it. It just was just something I did, you know. So
I'm just looking down your chart as well to see if there's any other second lines. So you've got Pluto, gate 32 down the bottom right of your personality. Okay. So let's just put it up again for everyone. So we're going to share the chart.
Is it like kind of not really, is it kind of taboo or whatever, just not really accepted that people bring up their astrological information, like their like zodiac sign? Does that have anything to do with, I don't really hear a lot of people talking about that, and that's fine. Like, I know they're separate arts and they're separate modalities, but it's like, does that ever correlate? Do you find that correlates?
Yeah, for me, it's not something I've really looked into, so I'm not really in a position to talk about it that much. I know there are people who do both, and yeah, I'd maybe throw that question back at you, because you may be in a better position to research that one than I am.
I'll have to look into it more, because when you mentioned, something with Pluto, I was thinking my zodiac sign is Scorpio. So I was wondering if it did have a correlation in any way, and I haven't heard too much about it, but I'll look into it.
Right. So one thing to know about the cycles and the rhythms that happen with these charts is that all of the different, let's just call them planets, the 13 different things, like they're not all, we've got the moon and we've got the sun, but those 13 planets, they all move at different speeds. And then sometimes some of them go into, we've all heard the expression of Mercury retrograde, where then Mercury starts winding backwards and then it will start going forwards again. So it's like the relative transit, the relative movement through space is kind of going back on itself like that. But Pluto is one of the slower moving planets there, right? So whereas the moon has a 28-day full cycle, Pluto's several hundred years.
Okay.
I don't have it off the top of my head. Maybe it's 200 years or something like that. But what that means is that, people who are born at a similar kind of, at a similar kind of age often have the same thing going on with Pluto.
Interesting. Right. Just like large transits. There's whole groups of people with certain transits because it takes a long time for that planet to rotate, to go around the sun.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Whereas, everyone born on the same day usually has the same, either one of two incarnation crosses.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, the incarnation cross, it's like 100, I think it's 182, 192 incarnation crosses. And most of those incarnation crosses, there are some that are very rare that only happen for like a short period of time, like a few hours, but most of them are taking place over, most of those incarnation crosses will last for several years. So if you've got the same birthday, you very often find you've got the same incarnation cross and the same profile. But the thing to say is that, people watching this and they're like, oh yeah, I'm not a 6'2", I don't have, like they say they're a 3'5" or a 1'3" or something like that. The second line, the hermit, is still probably going to be somewhere in their planetary activations. So for example, if you look at your unconscious on the left, your north and south nodes, that's like the M shape with the two squiggles and the U shape with the two circles. So they're both, the north and south node for you are both in your second line. So that's to do with your kind of life purpose going forward and looking back. So the north node looking forward, the south node looking back. But we're quite far down a rabbit hole now. So I'm going to
we need to, yes,
a little bit.
It gets very, very esoteric. This can get very deep. Like you said, we want to stay with maybe like having some stories and experiences and how to kind of make this more, I guess, relatable to everybody versus of your chart, which is like specific.
Right. So do you have an example of your third line of kind of like, an experiment or a mistake that happened maybe in your 20s that was either something that went amazingly well or went disastrously badly, but you learned from it? Is that something that you could talk about?
I mean, I did a lot of, I tried a lot of different things in my 20s. I mean, I was living in Miami, and then I got a job offer for a company that was in North Carolina, and it ended up being in the video game industry. And that wasn't the field I was studying, but I did have a hobby. I have had lots and lots of hobbies. I still do, of playing video games back in the day. I don't really play too many video games anymore. I really don't have time. But I really like, okay,
I
so,
never had you down as a gamer.
right, I know I played a lot of role-playing games. I did a lot of like fantasy games, like, elves and spells and magic and all that kind of stuff. I really loved it. Just super fun. And
So we're talking early 2000, like in the noughties.
yes,
Zeros.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I applied to a company, and their headquarters was actually out of Norway. So I got to work for this company and travel to Norway and live in Norway for a while with the company, and met a lot of cool people. And it was just very like, it felt like I was just really just riding the wave and just saying yes to the invitation. It was there. I said yes, got to do all this really cool stuff that most people are like, wow, you got to do that. And, yes, it wasn't, and again, I didn't have to like force these things. Like, I really had to push through my undergrad. I had to push through my master's degree. Things felt like I was going uphill. This was like easy, right? Like I just loud. I said yes. It was something I really enjoyed doing. There was the invite. I just did it. It just happened. So that's a pretty interesting story, I think. And then like really just my life just really changed. I ended up coming back to the States, and didn't really want to end up staying there. I probably could have if I really wanted to go that direction, but I ended up coming back and just doing something completely different after that. But it was a great opportunity and experience, and I'm so glad I did that in my 20s.
It sounds like the obvious thing about this third line is that you tried so many different things.
Yes.
Yes. Career or work, and it's super interesting because the kind of the message from school is that you should really get your career established so that by the time you're 30, you've really gone up the rungs. And it seems like, well, the opposite might be true. How do you even know what you want to do until you tried a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Exactly. And I think I've always just been very much my own, this may sound kind of like cliche or whatever, but I've always just been very independent. I've always been able to like see the bigger picture. Like I can see the corruption in systems. I can see what I don't want to do. I don't always know what I want to do, but I can see what I do not want to do. I can see, that I didn't want to work for really big companies. I didn't want to work for people that I could tell were like, trashing the planet, not treating their employees right. I just knew it. I just know that wasn't going to be for me. Although I still was on the fence about, really what I wanted to do and really what that was going to end up looking like. And I knew it was going to happen, but I needed to just trust it and allow it. And it ended up, of course, becoming something I love and what I've been studying for my whole life, and sort of opening that door and walking through. The door was open. I just needed to walk through it, right? The invitation was already there. I just wasn't hearing it. I wasn't accepting it. I was pushed the other way, trying to get something out of life that was just shutting me down, right?
And did you experience the not self bitterness of feeling like
not self, right? And I was right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting very upset and bitter, I think, right? That's the bitterness. That's definitely a theme, and I'm working on that, and I'm feeling so much better these days. I'm better, not bitter.
It's such an interesting keynote, though, isn't it? That not self theme of bitterness, because I get the feeling like the generators, they may be emotional where it takes them longer, but either way, it's a pretty direct feedback mechanism, right? It's like a focal generator. They go out and they do something that day, and they feel shit when they get home, and they're like, it's frustrating because their energy didn't go where it could have gone that day. So it's kind of like a direct thing. Whereas for me as a projector, I don't know about for you, but for me, I find that this bitterness, it sort of comes in waves and it builds up over time. And it's not like I could just wake up the next day and then, maybe I could just sort of just stop trying. But it's kind of like, it's not like I can wake up and do something that gets rid of the bitterness.
Right. Sometimes you just have to rest and not try. Just stop,
Right,
surrender. Just
right,
stop
yeah,
trying. It's the
yeah,
holding on. It's the
yeah.
what am I really trying to achieve here? Am I, if you look at it, it's nothing. It's really it's your own battle within yourself that you can resolve by just letting go, and just allowing. And the invite is there. I think that's an interesting thing that I'm hearing myself talking about this, but I feel like the invite is there. It's just, are we going to allow it? And sometimes we're fighting our own battle and we're so stuck on something that we're missing the point. We're really missing our life. We're doing something else. But we need to be tuning into our truth and hearing it and allowing more. And
This is super cool. Can we pull your chart up
yeah.
again? There's a few things that have pinged that have made me kind of feel like, yeah, let's look at this center and that center.
All right,
So
let's do
you're
this.
saying about hearing your own voice. Can you see how from your G center, you've got that connection, the double connection up to your throat? For anyone that's new to this, the G center is the yellow one. The throat is the brown square. And you've got those two connections. You've got the conscious, the black one, the 31-7. And then you've got the one that's half red and half black. That's the 13-33. And both of those are on the collective circuitry. So, having a conscience about, speaking out about not wanting to work for a company that doesn't align with your values makes perfect sense, right? And this is all
Exactly.
right. This is all about your sense of like, the G center is like your spiritual reason for being here. That's defined, meaning it's like, it's reliable. It has reliable energy there, and for that to be flowing up in your throat and you speaking it out makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it is my reason for being here. My
Mm-hmm.
spirit is my reason. It's my purpose.
Mm.
Or what
And so
I'm
then we look
doing.
at that. Then we look at that sixth line, and that sixth line is like, it's made all those mistakes or experiments in the first 30 years.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe that time you spent gaming will come into play. Maybe it already has.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll some contact or something will have benefit for something in the role model phase later. So then there's this period from 30 to 50 roughly to integrate and absorb all those experiences. To like the fine wine maturing, getting ready to be consumed later
and to be a little open and kind of vulnerable in stories and stuff, I did have more opportunities at that time. Had a serious relationship. I bought a home. I rescued a dog from a shelter. I got a master's degree. I wasn't just during that kind of that gaming transitional younger phase of my life, I was also kind of serious more than now. Now things are like, I'm like a wild child these days, but I was pretty focused and like really doing like the thing, you know what I'm saying? And I realized that there was, that going forward, I was going to have to, again, listen to me, and I was going to need to be happy and not bitter. So again, I changed things up, and I'm listening to myself more, and I'm allowing, again, not forcing.
It sounds like you really experienced in lots of different areas there, right? Which makes perfect sense as a projector. The signal of success. We're here to experience success. You talked about systems. We're very good with systems because it's a great way we can get leverage without just cranking the handle like a generator. So we can look back at these and go, hey, there were lots of areas where even though you didn't know it, you knew it.
Yeah.
You knew it, but you didn't know you knew it. It's just like it's like leadership, isn't it? It's not like someone gives you an idea and you're like, oh, this is a religion, I'm going to take this on board. It's like, no, it's like, there's the language for something you already knew.
Yeah, I think the first time I opened up a human design book or looked on the internet, I just kept nodding. I was like, and I was like, what is this? Because it's all making a lot of sense here. This is really scary what's going on. And it's just been sort of, infiltrating my consciousness since, I think. And I just pieces and pieces of it. It's so complex. There's so much, and even for someone like me who studies and researches a lot of things, it's still like, wow, kind of blows my mind. So it's a very deep topic. I'm still learning a lot about it. It's really interesting. I wanted to ask you about the what's it called? Oh, I have something funny about the two. So the two triangles at the top here,
Uh-huh.
centers. I sometimes I'll say like I'm an airhead because they're both not filled in. Because it's kind of funny, right? You're like an airhead, whatever. It's a joke, but do you have any information on that? Why they're not filled in, and what that would, what that kind of brings into your life? What kind of experience you can expect from having that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really juicy one. So we hear people talking about the nine-centered being and the seven-centered being, right? So with human design, we're looking at the nine centers, whereas with the
Okay.
chakra system, they have the seven chakras. For us, the
Right.
nine centers that we're looking at.
Yes.
Yeah. So the top two centers, so out of your nine centers, you've got four colored in or defined. There's
Right.
three
Define.
brown and
Yeah.
yellow, and then you've got four that are undefined. Sorry, five that are undefined. You've got to add up to nine. So those are what we
Yes.
call undefined centers. Now, sometimes we call them open centers, and but then if someone says open, sometimes they mean they're totally open, which means there's no gate activations at all. Let's look at your head to make this a bit more tangible, right? So let's look at, is that zooming in okay there?
Yes. It's actually getting crisper as it's zooming in.
Brilliant. I'm still figuring this out a little
It
bit.
looks
So
really good.
that's
Yeah.
nice. That's cool. So you have an open head center, this upper triangle
Okay.
pointing up. Now, this is where the pressure to think comes in.
Okay.
And it's one of the two pressure centers. We have the root at the bottom. Now you have that defined. The root is
Okay.
the pressure to do stuff. So you're fairly good under pressure to do stuff. You're not going to get psyched out if someone's like putting a little pressure on you to do stuff.
Okay.
However, if someone's putting pressure on you to come up with an idea, and you've got to come up with an idea, you've got to remember something, you've got to say something, you got to have some kind of thinking process happen.
Right.
Under pressure, it's tough. It doesn't work.
Okay.
It's not how you're built. You're not built
Okay.
to work that way. Whereas you're actually you work very well in the white centers. It's almost like you work really well as a muse. You know that thing about how it's like that yin receptive mental space where
Got
people
it.
may find they have great creative ideas around you. Just by you being in the room, if you're
I've
the
heard that.
project.
I have heard that from a lot of people
Right.
that they felt like I'm their muse and and just hang out with me so I can create stuff. And I'm like, now I think
Amazing.
that makes sense. I've heard that a lot actually.
So this is
I never knew
the
why.
open. This is the open, and it's we need to when we can value that, we can actually just be in the space and realize that even if we're not actively doing anything, we're bringing so much value just by the power of our open centers. And especially for us as projectors, it's like we make visible. Think about what a projector does, right? You take if anyone most of us are probably old enough to remember the acetates where you draw, it was a film of paper. You get your red, your green, your blue, and your black, and you draw a diagram or math or something, and then the projector makes that visible up on the screen. So that's what we do. We amplify that energy and bring clarity by bringing it up on the screen. And this is where we have the wisdom of the open centers is learning how to do that. Now, if your head's full of ideas that don't matter and you're thinking the whole time, that's not gonna help that. It's not gonna support that. So
Right.
each of the nine centers has a debugging question. So the head center, the open head, the top one, is where am I thinking thoughts that don't matter? So if you're, and you've obviously done lots of different things along your spiritual journey, you may well have done some meditation. This is beautiful to say, okay, where am I thinking thoughts that don't matter?
Right.
Taking you away from being here right now. And then the head center, the ajna, the head's the top one, then the ajna, it's a little bit like the third eye, which is green when it's colored in. That's all about processing that information. But notice it only connects with the head and the throat. It doesn't connect to any other centers. So
Right.
it takes those ideas and it asks questions. And that can be a beautiful thing, but it's not your authority. It's not the place to make decisions from. It's not your
Okay.
inner knowing. It's a great place to just be open and receptive. Now, open
Yeah.
Ashna is all about having no fixed way of thinking. It's not designed to have a
Wow.
certain logical, rigid, fixed way of thinking.
That makes so much sense for how I've been in my life. Very intuitive. I get a lot of messages. I just intuitively process other people's, like, I can see things for them. You know, I get information. If they're asking for it, I can kind of tap into their experience, their energy, and get information for them.
So when I'm talking with you, I feel a real difference, right? Both of us have our throat defined. But I have those top 3 centers defined. So I have defined head. I've got the 63-4. I have the defined ajna. I've got the 23-43. And I've got.
You're not an airhead, Dunstan.
I'm not an airhead.
You're
I've
not
got
an
the
airhead.
vaccination. But have you noticed how when I'm talking, it's a little bit drier? It's more kind of factual. It's more like, here's the information. Whereas when you talk, it's more about like, hey, this is my life purpose. This is what's important to me. These are my values. These, like, I don't want to work for those companies. I do want to be this company.
Yeah. How cool. I love
So
that.
it's a really different kind of information.
Yeah.
Now, the whole thing with human design is that the energy flows through to the throat. And that's where the manifestation happens.
Mm.
The throat connects to all these other centers. I think it connects to more centers than any other of the centers, right? So the throat has all these connections. It connects to up above those 2 centers. It connects to every center apart from the root is connected to the throat directly.
I got a question for you guys. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
This came up yesterday. I was hanging out talking with a sacral generator, and on her chart here, the 731 is personality, and then the single channel. Which one is it? 49. I can't see it here. From the root to the solar plexus, what is that? The 49 and the
1949?
That's the design. And what came up yesterday, hanging out, I had a sacral generator come in that I met the night before, and she wound up just sucking in human design. She had heard about the gene keys, but hadn't gotten into it. She came over, and we spent like 5 hours, and luckily I was able to suck that sacral energy out of her to keep going. But the one thing that came up was that on her chart, and like on this one here, so the personality is who we think we are, correct?
Right.
That's the red one. The personality is the black one, who we think we are, and the design's the red one, which is
design. So the question came up was that. So the black one is who I think I am. Does that in fact mean that that's not really who I am? That the red one is who I really am? And so on this chart here, the black one is who she thinks she is, and this is the same for all of us, especially if we have just the one channel on each side like that. So the question is, for her, does she this is who she thinks she is, the 31-7. Does that mean that she's really not actually that? I don't know. Too early.
This is really deep, guys. I don't know. Jumping off the deep end here.
And I was stumped with it yesterday because I didn't really know what the hell to tell her on that. And I was just curious if you guys had any thought on that at all.
I feel like they're both valid, and I feel like for me, I'm pretty much at a level where, you know, red and black, like, I'm not yet at a level where I can really look at the body graph and go, that's going to be totally different to that because that's red and that's black. I know for me, my channels that are in red, it's kind of like I have that capacity. Like I have the sales channel in red, which is the 2644, which is going across the middle from the will to the, on this chart, Melissa's got the 46 in red and black, right? I've got that whole channel. And then I've got the channel of struggle in black. So consciously in my life, I'm often aware of struggling. I don't naturally think of myself as a great salesperson. But then when I look at it, there have been so many times in my life where I have and do influence people in the crowd to go in a certain direction. So that's red for me, that's unconscious. So it's like a capacity I have without knowing I have it. Whereas the struggle is pretty obvious for me most days in my life. It feels like I'm struggling with something or other. Is that the kind of thing that you mean there, James?
It kind of is. And I was thinking about my chart when that came up, that I have the 1156 design. And I was told by John Martin that if I'm thinking about what I'm saying, that ain't right, that I need to just allow it to come through. But yet on the 4816, I have that in the design, that's who I think I am. So that kind of had me thrown off with this gal yesterday, that I didn't quite know how to answer that for her. But that kind of makes sense that Melissa's aware of that 731. She's aware of that. Whereas the thing that comes naturally to her is the red line down there, 4919. I don't know. This is
let's break it down. I think I got something that may be useful for people, James. I think this is a really interesting topic. This conscious and unconscious in the channels, right? So. Melissa, are you aware of what split definition means? Because that's a fairly macro concept that we've got here with split definition.
Can you refresh my memory on that one?
Absolutely. What I always say with people is that the best way to learn about split definition is to draw it out, right? So if I just draw real quick, you can do this as well. Everybody can try this. Just draw out your defined centers, right? So you've got the throat just there. Just pop a square in. Pop a diamond in under below it. And are you aware of what we mean by hanging gates, Melissa?
So is the gate where it's not completely filled in here?
Right. So if you look at number one at the top of if you look at the number one at the top of your G center, that's what we call a hanging gate.
Right. It's a half. It's like only half.
It's a half a channel. It's, if you think of the centers as being like islands, it's kind of like there's a half bridge here, but you can't get across to the other center, right? Right. Whereas your 31-7, they're both gates that are defined.
Yes.
Channel, so they are not hanging gates. So what I want you to do is just draw in all of your channels, but not your hanging gates, right?
Okay.
Just a little sketch. I'm going to do one too, and then we're going to see if we get the same thing. So everybody can try this.
Okay, but I'm not sure how I can draw.
I'm just taking a pencil and a paper, and I'm just that's the kind. See what I mean? Just like, so I'm drawing. So far I've got. You see what I'm doing here? I'm only drawing your defined centers.
Okay.
They're colored in, right? So I'm just going to color in your throat.
I didn't know we were going to have pencil and paper.
And there's going to be a quiz later.
I need more coffee.
I've seen this explained so many times, and people still find it a bit hard to get it. So this is my freak to genius here. This is a 2343, the channel of structuring, offering a little, inviting.
You're very organized. I was gonna say that, Dunstan. You're a good salesperson because you're so organized. You can you sell your organization skills or something.
Well, I do declutter coaching for people. I haven't done it much, but
that's what I'm getting. I'm like, you seem organized, and yeah, oh my goodness.
I actually have got an invitation to go and do that, and then we're going to go halves on the stuff that we sell on eBay. So And I think there's some good stuff in that house. So that could be a nice little side hustle for me there.
I'm like the queen of side hustles. Like, this is like awesome.
Thanks for seeing
Yeah.
so
Try different things.
Can you see if we take off all the hanging gates and the undefined centers, we end up with that? Let me just stop the share so you can see it a bit bigger. Maybe that'll do that. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Like,
So
is it really sad to have so many hanging gates, or is it like, why?
Hey, come on now. If you're a reflector, you only have hanging gates, right? That's not necessarily sad. It means it's got potential for connection and activation. It means it's about
I love that.
with other people, right? So,
Oh my God, all them hanging gates on her
juicy
too. That's cool.
I don't have a sad chart.
No, there's no such thing as a sad
It's receptive and connective.
Yeah.
I love that.
So we're gonna come on to some of those hanging gates, because James is spot on with the screen, right? But let's just look at this split definition to start with.
Okay.
So if you imagine these were dumbbells, can you see you've got like two dumbbells? If you were doing weights, can you see how you've got like, one's got a double connection, the other's got a single connection. Those are your three channels. Can you see that they don't connect to each other?
Exactly, yes.
Right. Now, if we look at your chart again, what's the easiest way that they could connect? If you had one gate that you could add on a gate that would create a connection, which gate would you say you wanted to be single definition? Which
Can you
gate
show
would you wish for?
Can you show it to me one more time?
Yeah, there's your chart.
Got it.
So how can we connect those two?
I would connect the filled in. Okay, the throat and the thing on the right. Sorry, I don't know what it's called.
That's your emotional. That's your solar plexus.
Okay.
So it's this one here. Can you see? It's let me put a big circle around it. So what's your bridge gate? What number is it?
It would be 12 and 22.
Right. So you've got the 12 in your unconscious.
Yeah.
So if you may notice that if you vibe with someone that's got the 22, you're going to get this feeling of like, oh, I feel whole. This kind of thing. You're going to get this feeling of like, yeah, okay. Oh, look, I've got the 22. They've got the 22.
Okay.
Now, when you're in connection with that person, in relationship with that person, whether it's family, intimate, professional, or just hanging out, you're going to feel like decisions can be easier to make because in your connected aura, you're all one. You're all working as one. Whereas without that, you've got these two separate parts. Now, do you remember how you said that you needed to come back to your authority, which is the emotional authority?
Yeah.
And as James was saying, the 1949 is unconscious. So you've got energy moving there for sure. And those are two motors, right? And the emotional is the most powerful and kind of volatile of the motors because it has this wave going up and down and side and round and giving you all the colorful experiences of life. But this is in your unconscious because it's red down here.
Right.
So what that means is that, you know, it's very easy for you to feel like you might be trying to move in two directions at once. Like part of me wants to go here, but part of me wants to go there. I'm a split definition too, right? So I have.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Split definition.
Split definition. Yeah. You got a single split. There's also, which means you got two parts. There's also some people who've got like three different things going on. They're called triple split. And there's even people who've got eight or nine centers who've got like four different things going on. You know, my friend who's a quad split says that someone described it as being like a walking Swiss Army knife if you've got four different splits, right? So
wow.
You've got the knife, you've got the corkscrew.
That's intense.
The screwdriver, the saw, you know, different things.
And then sometimes a planet it'll drop into that 22. And with that, just from the neutrino field, you will feel more at one with yourself temporarily. Yeah.
So it says that I'm a so I'm not an energy projector because the gates were the 21, 50, that's not defined So I'm not.
Hang on. Slow down just a second. You definitely are an energy projector.
Okay.
Yeah. So are you aware of which of the 4 motors on the chart? You got 2 defined and 2 undefined, right?
Okay.
So your motors are basically an energy projector is a projector that has a motor defined, 1 or more motors defined.
Got
So
it.
you've
Okay.
got 2, right? You've got the emotional solar plexus and you've got the root. Both of those motors, yeah?
I understand now. I was getting that confused with an energy projector and an emotional projector.
All emotional projectors have to be energy projectors.
Okay, I got it.
Yep. It's impossible to be an emotional projector without being, because you've got to have the spleen, the solar plexus defined. And
Okay.
one little thing that does confuse people and confused me for several years is that the solar plexus and the emotional center are one and the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes I was trying to find, well, where's the emotional center on this diagram? It's got solar plexus, but no emotional. Where's the same one? Emotional, solar plexus, same thing.
It's defined. It has the gates 36, 22, all that on there.
Correct. Yeah. You've got it defined. Yeah.
Okay. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I definitely learn more about that, go deeper into that. It's some, like understand that more. It's going to be a very journey.
Because you have a narrow split, you only need 1 gate to bridge your split. You only need the 22 to bridge your split. Like, imagine if you had like the top 2 centers defined, but not the throat defined.
Right.
That's what we call a wide split, because you need a whole load
It'd be a bigger jump.
Right. It's a bigger whole load of stuff got to happen to connect it up. And like James was saying there, you can just look out for that 22. Look out for it in the current transit. If you know, a lot of people use the app on the phone where you can just, it's a cheap or free one, and you can just pull up current transit, or you can search for it, and it might be, Pluto's on gate 22. It means that's going to be active for some time. So for that period of time, you might feel you're able to make difficult decisions.
Okay, I'll definitely have to look into that. That's a really great point. I can look for someone who has the 12 and 22 filled in, and that would help. That's somebody who I could really connect with emotionally, creatively. This is going to be a good match.
The most powerful way it'll happen is they just have the 22.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a bit like you often feel this, when you might get that attraction with a person, or that kind of knowing, or that kind of, you're pulled together, you're drawn.
Yeah.
And it's like the energy wants to flow. Like, imagine if, like I had this with someone once, and we had, it was like there was a lot of chemistry because we just connected randomly, and then we looked at each other's chats, and there was this kind of like very strong sexual energy flowing between us. And when we looked at it, it was like, she had one half with a hanging gate, and I had the matching hanging gate. And I think that happened like 2 or 3 different places around the chart.
That's so cool.
So it's kind of like
that.
These two, it's kind of like, I like to think of myself being on a little island with my little half bridge, and I want to use this half bridge, and then I meet someone who's got the matching half bridge, and it's like,
right. I'm so happy you brought this up, because I think that this is really the most interesting part of this for me, is to the combined charts and figuring this out from that, because I can look at my own stuff all day, and it's not really interesting. It's interesting, of course, but I think it's more interesting to find how charts combine and the strengths you have with other people. That's to me more, I don't know. That's like the gold right there. I really love that.
And sometimes that will, sometimes that's going to activate fresh centers. Like,
how cool. That's so cool.
Center, and then you get access to a whole new bunch of energy right there, which can be really cool. So I think on the app, it's one of the apps is about £5, and you can get the chart overlay capacity.
Great.
And they'll have like Brad and Angelina Jolie and people like on there and stuff. So James,
twice in the last week, I've done composite charts with the people that I was kind of hanging out with, and one gal had just one channel, and I had And I've got the two channels. But when we combine them together, all 9 centers lit up. And that happened twice with me. I was kind of pretty amazed that all them hanging gates would be connected to the point to where we had as the unit, all 9 lit up. It was like, oh,
That is so interesting. I love that.
I don't know what the hell that means, but
It's awesome.
Well, James, you actually have the 22, right? I'm just looking at your chart. So you have that gate 22.
shit,
So
I'd have to look.
So, so remember Melissa was saying how she felt like just drawn to that conversation.
Yeah, it was like I had to talk to you guys.
Right. And I'm trying to remember. I think I might have it as well. I'm trying to remember.
Yay! That is so cool. Come on. It was like it was almost like I was compelled to speak to you. I just had so much to say. It was like so weird of me. Usually I'm like in complete hermit mode, so it was really good. I love that.
I do have the 22.
Hey, Dunstan.
22. Hey, who's that talking? Hello.
This is Ron. Hey, I noticed that in the transit, the 22 is active. So I have gate 12, and that 22 in the transit has been active for a while, which means anybody with the hanging gate 12 has that channel of openness. So for a while now, I guess it's been about a month, I've noticed the difference in having that channel open, the 1222. Like I've been more open with people, like my conversations have been more open. And so we have that now. We don't have to actually come in contact with other people that have the 22. It's there for us now. So
I love that.
Read that channel and find out if that's true for you too, right?
I will. If it is true or not, this past couple of months have been just phenomenal for me. I've so many opportunities, so much more communication, like you're saying, like so many more invitations. It's just been really great.
Yes.
That brings up the question, though, that with that 22 lit up by whatever's in there, that it's still not us. That's a place where we can learn what it feels like to have that whole channel. But should we make decisions based on this energy, this temporary energy we have, because it's not really us? That's always a good question to look at.
See, that's a weird thing for me. I'm a totally open solar plexus. I have totally open solar, but with this channel, it gives me defined. So I'm not used to having feelings. And now I have feelings. I have to ride these waves of feelings that come through all the time now. But it won't last forever, but I just don't know how long it's going to last. So it's interesting to me, like when I go back to being open again, I'm not able to be empathetic with people's emotions now because mine are coming through. Does that make sense?
And you might have a tendency of wanting to do more than you really should be because you've got
this is true. This is true. Yes, I've been overexerting myself, not sleeping well.
I'm not sleeping for the past 2 weeks almost. It's been really
exactly. I'm getting ready for the burnout again. It's like
we gotta be really careful.
Careful, yeah. True.
It's so true. The self-care piece with the projectors, I think, is just so important. It's like, I don't know. I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to really just have compassion for myself, empathy for myself.
You got another 10 years on the roof to figure it out at least, right?
Right. I know. I'm getting a good tan up here on the roof.
That's right. Radical self-care. That's
right.
it.
I have a lot of time to work on it.
Maybe we could have a little look at those 2 centers. But isn't it interesting that out of the 4 of us who are talking here, both myself and Jimmy both have the 22?
Yes.
So we've both got your bridge gate. So it's just really interesting, isn't it? You were like, oh, I was drawn to come and hang out. And this is the beautiful thing with the experiment. Like Ron's got some really cool data right there on, what this has been like to live in. Do you have the current transit there handy, Ron? maybe someone who could look up the current transit. I've got too many windows going on as it is. Maybe someone could just pull up the current transit and we could check out what is activating that. And Mike just left us a message before he left. So Mike said that he clarified something that I shared earlier, which was an error. There are actually two centers that do not have a direct connection to the throat. He's absolutely right. So the head and the root are not connected to the throat. So both of the pressure centers are not directly connected to, not directly connected to the throat. So if we think about the pressure to think coming in on the head, the pressure to do coming in at the root, then those energies go through other centers before they come to the throat. So that was just a technical clarification. He's absolutely spot on. He said he's got a bounce. He has a Living Your Design call starting. He enjoyed it and he wants to do it again. He said thanks. So that was just a little message there. So, Ron, did you want to say something else on that there?
No, I thought I heard somebody say that it was Neptune that was activating that 22, so it could be activated through September or something like that. It was going to be a little bit
right. There it is.
Neptune. And I heard other people say it was going to be a longer time, like 2 years, that I was going to be feeling this for a while. So I'm not really sure what the actual. I know it's there every day. I check. So.
What website are you using to check?
Oh, I go to Jovian Archive, and then there's like a Just Now.
Okay.
That's what Jimmy's pulled up there for us.
Okay, yeah, great.
That'll give you the today's transit. That'll give you
awesome.
It's right there. Right, exactly.
Yeah. And then if you have the app that I was talking about, it's the main human design app that's popular on phones. I think it's free on Android, or it's like a few dollars on Apple. But you can download. I think the current transit is free, and it's got a slider bar, so you can go forward and backward, like about a week into the future and past, so you can see what's coming up. I've also got the planetary ephemerals here, if anyone wants to see that. I mean, this is a big rabbit hole, but we want to know how long this Neptune is active for, right?
Right.
So,
and the other thing I noticed with this transit thing was that I have the top 4 defined, and with the transit, it connects all sorts of. The only one I have undefined is my ego. So it can. All my centers are defined except my ego.
So you're usually a self-projected projector with the top 4 centers, yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Correct. And I'm usually everything is, yeah.
Apart from the will.
Right. So it feels good. It feels good. It feels good. Like you really used to going into crowds and being open to everybody's energy and getting a little messed up, you know. But so now they're defined, so I'm not open to everybody's energy. So it's kind of cool to be
normal.
Normal, yeah. Like I guess that's what it feels like to be normal, and to have this and to have my own sacral energy. That's a that's a weird thing too. Not having to get it off of other people. But like you said, you got to be self-care because I'm running on, this. I don't know where it comes from. It comes from my sacral or whatever, but but I'm just all learning. I'm just learning this too.
Yeah. When did you first hear about human design? Like I learned about it maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been kind of studying on and off.
I learned about it 3 years ago, but I've really been into it the last year.
Yeah.
Because it made so much sense. It answered all my questions of why I'm have so many problems in this world, why I feel so different, because I am different.
Yeah.
That's and that's a good thing. It's a good thing to know that we're all unique and we're all, we're not all the same. So I can't run like, manifestor generator. And so it's good to know that. But now I got to learn what my limitations are and my gifts. That's the thing, is learn what your gifts are, so you can really be a good guide, or be open into. I have the 4-6, so I'm opportunistic role model.
Okay.
So
Wow.
that means like I gotta bone up on my knowledge so that when the next invitation comes in, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I think you should get an invite on the show here. I think you should come on. I think you're very interesting, and you know a lot about these transits and the combined stuff. It's so cool.
I just learned about it. I just kind of like started going down that rabbit hole. Like, what does it mean that these planets, I mean, if it's the planets that we were born, then what's happening today and how does that affect me?
Right.
You know, I'm just trying to like be the best, try to be the best person I could be. Because I notice I go through these ups and downs and like I'm not prepared for them. Then how can we, you know, how can this be so that we're prepared for stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, okay, this connects these channels together, and I'm better for, because I started to notice I was like good for 2 weeks, and then I'm crappy for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I've noticed the cycles.
I want to sleep all the time. I don't want to deal with people. You know, I was like, so how's that? What's causing that? You know, and so the more I kind of delve into this, like this transit thing is a really important factor.
It's really cool.
in what we're dealing with. Like, what channels are getting connected, and what gifts do I have right now?
Yeah, you're inspiring me to look into that way more. I'm really excited to explore that.
Cool.
So Ron,
thank you.
Yes,
Ron, I had a thought for you that. So yeah, you know, the transit wants to sit and learn and see why we're feeling this way or that way because of the transits, because of the people that we are. This is how we actually learn. You probably know this. This is how we actually learn what it feels like for a person that has that particular deal. You know.
Right. Now I know. Yeah. Now I know what it feels like to have sacral energy, and sometimes it's not very comfortable. So I can have empathy for generators to know that, like, oh, this energy is kind of crazy sometimes.
But the actual goal, the goal of human design is all of this data is just data until we incorporate it into actually living it. And the cool thing about human design is that once we have enough data behind us to realize who we really are, the feeling of who we really are, that after a while, and this is the way I am, is that the data eventually doesn't matter anymore. That when you start feeling different than what your norm is, you know, when you're by yourself and blah, 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 that you come to an understanding that you kind of know when I'm, you know, when I'm feeling different than my normal energy frequency, and to accept it as it doesn't really matter who or what is doing that, and this is the way that we're able to back away from study and to actually live what you are, knowing when you're different, you're feeling different. It's not you, you know. That's kind of what happened to me, and that's one reason why I don't particularly spend much time looking at all the data anymore. So, I don't know. Yeah.
I was about to go the other way, James. I'm glad you put that in there. I was about to have a quick little visit down that rabbit hole of that 22 in the current planetary transit. So, would you guys like to see that? Ron, have you seen the ephemeris before?
Say that again.
Have you come across the ephemeris as a thing? Have you seen the ephemeris? I'm gonna pull it up right now so you can see this. One of the cool things I love about being a projector is we have so many people in groups on Facebook just waiting to share stuff. So I've gotten so much good information. So this ephemeris someone passed this on to me. So this is a spreadsheet showing what is where, when. Can you see that okay, Ron? Is that showing up there on the screen?
Yes.
So,
oh wow.
So it's a thing. It's a trick. Now, this is for the and the caveat I want to put in this is I don't want anyone to get lost in this. You know, it's okay to have a little look at it, but like James says, we got to live it, right? So that said, can you see? You're absolutely spot on. Can you see Neptune? The Neptune column there was on the 22, right?
Right.
So if we look at it,
retrograde.
Right. So the pink is in retrograde.
Right.
So if we are, we're on the 27th, right? So the reason the whole channel is active in the current transit is because if we look at the Venus, it was, which is this column here, and Venus is only activated on the 12th gate for like 4 days. However, this 22 has been around, like Ron says, for a long time. Now, what's really interesting is, if we go backwards, can you see the 22 column is like 20, it started at 22.1. So we entered into it on the 30th of March. So on the 30th of March, we went from gate 63. Can you see it's gone from gate 63 to gate 22? Is that showing up there, Ron?
Yes.
So we went from 6th line back to 1st line, and then all the way until now, right through till September, because what happens is it's going in retrograde, so then it's going backwards.
Backwards, right.
So it's 22.2, 22.2, when it goes in August, it goes 22.1, all the way back until the 21st of September. Then we've gone backwards in retrograde onto gate 63, and then
so the fall's equinox is when it changes, huh?
it seems that way, yeah. And then on the 30th of January next year, it's going forwards again, and we're back on gate 22. And then you've got a whole load of time to get to know that gate 22. So that goes all the way through till like, oh my goodness, it goes all the way through, and then it starts going back into retrograde again. So it's like most of next year for you guys.
Well, that's a big rabbit hole right there. That's
mental.
So does
that
that mean that just means like I'm not going to have the empathy, the feeling empathy for other people for a number of years, huh? This is
May 2021.
Time to get to know myself thing.
Yeah,
huh?
May 2021. Okay, let's put that rabbit hole away then, shall we? Otherwise, James is going to be telling me off.
But this brings up a deal that earlier I wound up kind of in the very beginning of the of our deal here. I was on my phone, which I still got on over in the corner over there, but somebody called me from Yuma, and it messed up somehow or the other the audio on it. So I had to come over here to the computer over here. But anyway, you guys were talking and mentioned something about why or if there's not much talk about astrology in our human design pages. And I think it's because people that don't know much about astrology, well, they get into this system and they're overwhelmed by that. But people that do know about astrology have a tendency, and this is, my case, and it might very well be Melissa's too, that we see that human design is so much more complex than astrology and can answer so many self-asked questions compared to astrology that it's just not really, it's just kind of put on the side because it was kind of like a building base for human design incorporating all this other stuff. So that's my guess why I haven't seen too much or seen anybody. Every now and then people will ask questions about it, but it's kind of pushed to the side. At least that's my observation. So,
yeah, I think human design just has so much more of an energy explanation and management system for your body and your life. Like it's really how to manage your energy and how to use your energy effectively. I think it goes way deeper into that, where astrology can answer more broader questions about things. Like I don't really know, but I understand what you're saying. It feels way more energetic to me.
So a couple of things to chime in there with is that, as we know, the human design is calculated from two sets of data, right? We've got the time of birth, and we've also got the time 88 days before when the magnetic monopole gets formed when we're in utero. So there's those that, as James was saying earlier, we've got the personality and we've got the design. So the design goes in 88 days before, and this is where the incarnation cross happens, because we've got the opposition of sun and earth at those two different times. So we've got those two right angles cycling around that give us left angle, right angle, and juxtaposition crosses. So you guys are both 6-2s, which means your left angle crosses. I'm a 3-5, which is one of the right angle crosses, and they're about 2/3, 1/3. There's 2/3 right angle, 1/3 left angle. And then you've got a tiny fraction of people who are 4-1s, which is the juxtaposition, which kind of bridges the two. That's the 4-1 profile.
So interesting.
I have to say, Dunstan, you're one of the most stable 3-5s that I've ever run across in my.
I don't know if that's a good thing. That's pretty crazy. I'm disappointed.
It seems to blend a lot of different systems. So it's talking here about the Hindu Brahmin system. It blends the I Ching. It blends the it blends in astrology. It kind of like draws from all these other really big modalities and arts, and it created this really amazing and in-depth system.
Right,
and it has
right.
its own information and methodology too, but it draws from many different ancient arts and sciences, really.
Yeah, when you look at the mandala, the rave mandala, you're going to see the gates of the I Ching, the yin and the yang, in the 6 different lines.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, really.
So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the power of 6 makes 64, right? And then you've got really interesting things. You've got like 36 different channels, so 64 gates. 6 squared is the number of channels. There's a lot of maths in it. There's a lot of there's the seven chakras are linked to the 9 centers.
The 9 centers.
The Kabbalah,
more of a Sanskrit Hindu background.
And so you were talking about the book that you're looking at there. The book. For me, I have that book, but I also use Karen Curry's book here.
Yes, I think that book is here as well.
Yeah. And the thing I like about this book is that she gets a little bit, her explanations of the gates and the channels and everything, it's a little bit more kind of down to earth compared to the crypticness of
yes.
So I kind of use both books.
This one feels like real reference kind of material to me, and just overall concepts. And the other one I'm really getting into now is one you have, and that one's here too. And my friend who has these books, she owns them. She likes that one. She does really like that one better. She said the explanations are different, and she really prefers it as but.
And what brought me to this book was that I had, I don't know if we mentioned it in that last talk we had there, but when I was on a 2-hour talk with Randy Richmond one time, he was asking me if I had any OCD tendencies or ADD tendencies, and he mentioned a channel, and I couldn't remember what it was. And then in one of the classes that I took with Lavina, it came up about a hanging 9 gate that I have, also a hanging 5 gate that I have. And reading in the definitive book on those gates, it's just I couldn't really put that together. But then when I read it in Karen Curry, she says on that hanging 9 gate, people have a tendency of having.
It's more relatable.
It's like,
more specific for our needs, our human condition right now.
And then that hanging 5 also is a potential for people to have OCD. And so that's why I like both books now, because this one actually resonates more with the way my mind works, whereas other people might very well not care for this book because their mind resonates with the definitive book more so. So anyway.
Right. That's cool.
Isn't it beautiful how there's so many different ways to learn this? And one of the things that I'll say is, if bearing in mind we're gonna upload this recording, if people are listening to this and they are, they're feeling overwhelmed, I just want to say, always come back to strategy and authority. And once you've got those things down, you can start to look at which centers are defined and which centers are undefined. But this stuff that we're looking at, as projectors, we do have the capacity to be able to deal with, like, hey, there's a whole load of information here, but we don't have to learn it all at once. So on the one hand, one thing we haven't talked so much about is your authority being emotional authority. So I'd definitely like to look at that. If we were doing a proper chart reading, that would definitely be something, that would be probably the biggest thing we'd look at as far as how you make decisions. We could also look a little bit at the undefined sacral center, the undefined spleen, which has loads of hanging gates that James pointed out, which links with some of the stories you were telling earlier. And I've also just pulled up your incarnation cross as well. In the group chat there.
Oh, it says I'm a game player. How interesting is that? And one of my stories, which was I worked with games, and I
right?
for a long time.
Let that percolate and marinate, and that I would suggest that's just something to
that's kind of mind blowing, actually, and really weird.
Melissa, you said when I heard you telling that story, you said it all felt like it was just so easy and everything.
Yeah.
And I thought, you didn't, but you got burned out on the other stuff. And I thought to myself, it was because it was fun, right? All the jobs that I've had that were fun when I worked for amusement parks or where people were having fun.
Yeah.
Everything was really easy, and I had energy and I flowed and everything was great. But jobs that were menial and laborious, I got on real quick, so
yeah.
I don't know if that's just a projector thing or if it's, but yeah, you have the game player thing. So that must have been.
Yeah, I find that to be very, very interesting. That's, I don't know.
You ever wish you would go back into it?
I think that was a time, and I learned what I needed to learn out of it. And it was, my interests have just changed, and I just have so many other things that I'm doing now. And it's sort of, I kind of grew out of it, I think, in some ways. I find that I still have a lot of fun and I do other things, but it's I just, I don't know. It's I'm almost learning so many other things right now that are just so fascinating. So, I get to be a wizard in real life now instead of playing one,
There you go.
Oh, it's awesome.
Well, there's a lot of people like Elon Musk who think we're in a video game anyways.
Basically, right. We're in a simulation.
One thing I wanted to pick up on there that Ron shared, which is super powerful, is, this thing about when we're around people that are having a good time. So I've just pulled up the body graph. Can you see that again there? The open sacral center, right? So the open sacral center is very receptive to the energies around us. And bearing in mind, 70% of people are generators. And if they're doing a good job and they're in there, and they're just, imagine if all generators were doing stuff that they loved doing every day, and they got to the end of the day just feeling so satisfied that
they're great to be around.
And this really resonates with what Ron and you are both saying about when you're in a work environment with other people that are loving what they're doing, you're thinking of that beautiful sacral energy. It could be a computer programmer that just freaking loves programming and coding all through the night with his pizza and Coke or whatever, and he's just coding away, so happy doing that. And that's that good energy you're going to feel when you're around that sacral energy that's I'm frustrated, I hate this job. We are so receptive, and it is a projector thing. because we've got the open sacral. We feel that, and we take that in, and then, you know, Melissa, you were saying about feeling a bit like when you're in that not self phase, you're feeling a bit like frazzled or a bit emotionally like razzed.
Yeah.
You're maybe overstimulated. It's that kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
like there's this energy in you that's not good. It's like stressful. It's a bit anxiety. Maybe it's like so that's how we have to either, you know, ideally not be around those energies, or figure out ways to discharge that sacral energy. So you'll see a lot of posts if you look in the search of people saying, well, how do I get this, you know, how do I get this sacral energy off me?
Yeah.
Another thing we haven't talked about is if you sleep in the same bed as a generator, but, you know, you're going to be asleep, and all that sacral energy is like churning around.
Right. I find that I'll dream other people's dreams on stuff. Weird stuff. Like if I'm sleeping next to somebody, I'm like in another dimension. Like I can't have my own life sleeping. It's like, really, guys? Like, come on.
So they say if you want to live as yourself, sleep as yourself. So that's where you know, it's an experiment, right? You know, do you feel exhausted or nourished when you wake up?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of add to that, or ask a question too to other projectors here. How do you find your health, your immune system, your metabolism? I have a high metabolism. I'm always snacking. I'm like, it's like weird, even though I'm like, I could be literally doing nothing. I'm like always hungry, and my blood sugar goes down real quick, and I'm like really sensitive, and it's been going on for a long time. And I've, you know, I have to eat a very well-rounded diet, or I get zapped out. I find my immune system's pretty strong, but my mental health, I have to take really good care of myself. You know, my nervous system is sensitive. I wonder about other projectors.
Have you gotten into any of the PHS stuff, the how to eat and where to live kind of stuff, the deeper?
From human design? No.
Well, that's something you might check into, because they say that you really shouldn't check into this until you've kind of been in the experiment for a while. But they actually have insights into pretty much how you should eat and where you should live for the ideal nourishment of the body and the soul. For me, I'm an indirect light, which is, and I learned about this stuff 40, 50 years ago, that I like nights, I work nights, I eat at night, this kind of deal. That some people, and this might answer some of the questions about the way that you eat and your, and where you live. Some people they say mountains, some are shore, some are kitchens, which I am, the place of alchemy. And it's pretty cool.
Okay, that is really cool. I'll look into that. Could you maybe link that later? I'll just message you or something, how to get that information.
You'd have to find you really can't find it anywhere anymore. There were a couple sites that had a little bit of free stuff to it, but now I'm finding out that what do we got here? I can't see.
So this is an advanced human design chart again.
Okay,
you know,
wow.
For the first, you know, a period of time, it's like you really want to be living your strategy and authority before you even look at this. However, motivation can be a really powerful thing. So if you look where it says my motivation is need and my transference is fear.
Okay.
If I'm doing stuff because I need to get it done, that can be healthy for me. If I'm doing stuff because I'm afraid of what might happen if I don't do it, that's...
Wait, say that one more time.
So it's got my motivation is need. There are six different motivations, and each one of them, the transference is kind of the opposite.
Your values, yeah.
So if your
environment and so
your motivation is need,
right, and then the opposite is fear.
So if you're having any fear of something, you're just going to shut down. You're not going to do it.
For me personally, if I'm being motivated by fear, that's my not self.
Got it. Wow.
My not self. So it's like when you have success and bitterness, success
Right.
is your theme and bitterness is your not self theme. Well, for me, for motivation, it's need, and then the opposite is fear.
So you have to have need without feeling like you need it or you're not going to survive. It has to be a need that comes from another motivation, not fear.
Yeah, there's a real risk of getting mental here.
Yeah.
Yeah? And James and I could both probably pick up on that at the same time. I could give you an example from my life that may ground this a little.
Yeah, this is a bigger, deeper.
Shall we put this one away for a while? What I'll say, Melissa, is if you want to learn about this, when the time is right,
Okay.
I would say right now, put more focus
Right.
on your.
I'm still in Jedi training school. I'm not ready yet.
But at the same time, you know, there's a guy in another group called Cohen who very generously looks up these charts for people.
Okay.
That's a thing.
Sweet.
He's in the human design projector page that allows all different types of. I'm actually the admin for that also, and luckily I had enough sense to make him a moderator in there, and he's been doing a great job of.
Oh, awesome.
But I just wanted to flash back here before we go into something else about the job and the happiness in the job and whatnot. That 6'2" that I am, the first when I got out of high school and was taking a little bit of college, I wound up going through 7 or 8 different jobs, and they'd only last a couple months because I just didn't anybody's shit, which that's hard to do, you know, when you're working for somebody else, you know. But my dad invited me, and my dad was an energy projector. He was a locomotive engineer on a railroad, and he invited me to become a locomotive engineer. And for me, it was a dangerous job, but at the same time, it was a boring job. It was all kinds of things, but it resonated with me because, and I think part of it, you mentioned about being around people that are happy. Most everybody that works on the railroad love the railroad, and that energy, that frequency, really kind of added to a good experience. And I wound up doing that for 28 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
that's really cool.
And I was able to retire 24 years.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
But yeah, the people in the environment, and it's similar, just a sidestep into Sedona, that one of the things that's interesting about the feel of Sedona is that the majority of the people that come here to live leave something they're not happy with, following their heart path, and with that, the accumulation of the human energy in this area, I think that adds to that feeling of what you feel, what many people feel when they come to Sedona. One is beauty, you know, and then there's vortex and all this kind of stuff. But just, you know, that accumulation of the energy, the people being there because they want to be there, and working on their stuff. A lot of the spiritual people come to work on their stuff.
Yeah.
And I just had a discussion yesterday with that sacral generator that the energy, the frequency is changing in Sedona, and I believe it's because it is going like a lot of other tourist towns, that the money people are coming in, the personal energies of these people are different than the spiritual people that came in. And so there's kind of starting to be a shift of this overall frequency of the feeling of the town. So anyway, there's a couple tangents for you to not think.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I've always enjoyed Sedona. I do have quite a few theories about it as well. We'll have to talk about that at some point. I would like to. There's a lot there, definitely.
The vortexes are there, right? There's some vortex. Yeah, we visited some vortex.
We got some ley line vortexes, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back.
So does anyone else have any questions I know there's a lot of people watching as well. We've got Susan on the call. Hi, Susan. We've got Dylan. We've got Sarah, and we've got Matt, as well as those of us that are talking and showing our faces and stuff. And also for people listening later, if there is anyone that would love to listen to this and kind of, make some notes, because 2 hours can be a lot for people, but it would be fun if someone could make some notes, like, and say, after 43 minutes they were talking about this topic, and that kind of thing. If there's anyone, I don't know, if maybe it's more of a generator thing to do that, but if anyone's listening on the replay and feels that would be a juicy and fun thing to do, that would be a massive benefit to other people in the community, to be able to kind of index the conversation. And people are going to have interest in maybe one section. They can fast forward to that section. We have covered a lot of ground. What else we've been going nearly 2 hours now, so we're going to wrap up pretty soon, I think. What would people, Melissa, is there, what's been the kind of the take home here from today of what's been new for you there in this couple of hours?
This was a great chat. It just seemed very organic and just felt like it flowed. I love talking about the transits. I loved hearing about the split or the gates that are not completed and then completing them with another person. I think that is so fascinating. I loved hearing everyone's stories, kind of filling in about their own health, a little bit of their journey. It's just a great meeting. It was awesome.
It's been fun, huh?
Yes, it was a lot of fun, and it wasn't too I didn't feel like I was not informed enough on the subject to be able to speak to it or have a conversation. Like I didn't feel, like this was going to be way over my head in some way, and I couldn't get on here and have a conversation with you guys. So I thought it was just really open, really great. I would recommend it to any projector to come on here and talk. I will listen to the other talks. I'm super excited to learn more.
Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
I really think there is so much value from people who maybe are really you obviously are a little way into your experiment, but there's, even if someone's brand new, the next call we're going to do is with Simran, who's in the UK. It's going to be the other end of the day. It's more Australia friendly than US friendly. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be like 5 a.m. for you. And Ron might still be up. You never know. James might still be up.
Yeah,
from the night
James
before.
But
and she's a classic projector, same as Jimmy. But there's so much value in and it's kind of like refreshing that all of us are here learning, right? There's none of knows everything, and that's kind of like and James has been living as his experiment for pretty much longer than anyone I know. So
right.
I'm like, really, you're asking me that question? But we're figuring it out together, and we're kind of bouncing it around, and And if someone says something that's incorrect, like I said, that thing about the centers being connected to the throat, we can remind each other. We're like, hang on a minute, that's not quite right. We can do that. And that's especially for me as a third line, I make mistakes along the way and then kind of figure it out. So it's been great. And Ron, just that piece that he brought in about the transit there with having the same bridge gate as you. Super cool. So Melissa,
and then
let us know how that one plays
and then
out.
James talking about where to live, how to eat, all of that, how the chart gets more advanced, just something to look forward to and to think about for the future. I'm still studying, I am going to be, but it'll just sort of win and when I'm ready for that.
Do you ever have some food?
We're wrapping up.
Do you ever have a smorgasbord of food, and there's one thing you're like, that looks really juicy, I'm going to save that one till later, I'm not ready to try that one yet, like the variable arrows that are pointing in different directions at the top for your consciousness? That's I'm just starting to to look into that. So it's like, you know, we don't want to be like a kid that just opens all the presents all in one go.
Yeah, I've tried living in many different places, and I can tell that it affects my energy totally different no matter where I am. And I find that to be so fascinating, actually. I mean, we're all very adaptable people, but it's like some places just suit us better. I mean, I'm okay with that, you know?
The cool thing about this type of a talk that we're having in here is that for me, I don't learn. I just to read the data. It doesn't work for me as well as listening to people's stories. And that's at 1156, I believe, that I have that the storyteller, story listener kind of deal, that to hear people talk about what they're going through and being able to relate that to their chart, that's I learn more better, and that's why I created that lounge.
Yeah.
Lounge is to be able to, you know, the selfish side of it was for me to be able to learn from these other people, but also to try to get people to understand that the data is just the data, and until you try to really incorporate it in your life, that's the apple, that's the cabinet or whatever, you know. But yeah, for here, and you see the person, you know, and you can kind of pick up on their frequency.
I think it's so important to kind of connect the real story and see people and see how they're really living and hear, just converse about it, because you're right. It could be very like dry. It's data, you know, we're not really connecting. And this is, I mean, technology has really provided us this platform, and it's awesome. And we're using it so effectively and so beautifully for this. I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful for all the connection.
And somebody mentioned earlier, you know, about people, and I think I mentioned this in that talk that me and Dunstan had there, that in the lounge, 2,300 people from all over the world.
Wow. And
yet the stories that we hear are so similar. The things that these projectors are going through.
Right.
Doesn't matter the country, the society, the religion that they're brought up in. It's like projectors are projectors.
Right.
You go through the same shit.
I know. And how can that be if there's not a root to this, if there's not validity to the material, that there's no system here and we're all proof of it, right? And that's the cool part. And that is the thing that we don't really understand why it's set up like this, or this world, and but the fact that we can even understand it and make it a system to study, that's amazing in itself. You know, it's like, this is a gift.
Can't deny the truth.
Right. Right. Well, this was really awesome. I want to thank everyone for doing this. Thanks for letting me come on and talk and hanging out and just kind of going for it. It was really awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Hey, James, I just want to say thank you very much for setting that up on Facebook. I was at a point where I was like ready to just get off Facebook, and then I got hooked up into the Projector VIP room with you, and now it like gives me every day I go there, I learn something new. I ask questions, I learn. So I want to thank you very much for setting that up. That was awesome.
You're quite welcome. You know, it's like Randy Richmond said one time. He says, you know, every time that this is, you know, a while ago, every time that I run across Rob, when I see Rob, I always thank him for giving me something to think about for the rest of my life. I always thought that was pretty damn cool.
And if anybody has not listened to the story from Ra about how this all started on YouTube,
okay.
I highly recommend hearing the story about the voice and where this all came from.
Right.
It is unbelievable story. Right.
Okay.
Best story I've ever heard in my entire life.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it's free on YouTube.
All right, y'all, I'm going to jump off. I'm
See
starting.
you later. Bye.
All right. Dunstan, thank you so much for hosting this. I appreciate it very much.
Amazing. We got Wednesday, 10 a.m. UK time for anyone that's listening.
Okay.
Like 10 hours ago, or 12 hours ago, opposite end of the day, next Wednesday.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Much love.
We're global. We're a global community.
Yep, same aura type, different continent. And if anyone would like, if Ron or Jimmy or anyone would like to come on, anyone listening would like to come on in future, then message me, private message me with your chat, suggest some times, and we'll get to meet some more people. Melissa, thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you.
Being in the spotlight. Much love, and catch you
Appreciate it. All right, much love, everyone. Have a great night. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.